Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, last week I put out a video talking about how there's going to be an increase in plywood prices. It happened. Man, did we see some plywood prices increase. So last week, or not even last week, earlier this week, we were selling half-inch CDX for $49.88 a sheet. I thought that was incredibly expensive. Today, before I left work, we're at $52.99. $52.99 for half-inch CDX 5-ply. This is something that I have sold for $16.50. Typically, you would sell it for around $18 to $22. And right now, we have it at $52.99. And this is pretty significant because this is going to be an indicator of what we're going to face come into the summer for the new construction. Plywood is like a critical component to building, especially in the new construction market. And for those of you who don't know, who don't understand the sheathing, you have like 2x4s, 2x6s. Those are like the skeleton. The half-inch CDX or the half-inch OSB, that's like the skin that goes on the outside. They refer to it as sheathing. It's what goes on before all the doors, window siding, stuff like that. And this stuff is coming up in short supply. There is plenty of it to be had out there for a lot of people, but the price is going through the roof. $52.99 for half-inch CDX. You work all day and you can go out and buy 2 sheets. Maybe 3 if you have a really good job. This is unreal. I don't know how anybody is supposed to build a house with prices as expensive as they are. And now with the interest rates, and now we saw the 10-year Treasury, I think, before I started the video, I think it was still at, 1.5% or something like that on the 10-year yield, which is, I have a feeling, going to continue to have pressure on the housing market. Now, I did see where some of the mortgages, like the mortgage rates, came down a little bit as the 10-year Treasury kind of pulled back from the 1.6, but I don't think that's going to be a continuing trend. I think the upward trajectory on the Treasury yields, I think that's probably what we're going to experience a little bit more going into the next few months. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's what I feel. And if that continues, it's going to put even more pressure on the mortgage market, which eventually is going to start leading into the new construction market. But how long that takes is beyond me. It's anybody's guess. And from now until then, price of building a home is going to be quite expensive, and that's going to keep the house prices expensive. I mean, you think about it, the replacement cost of a home, even a cheap, small built home, is going to be very expensive considering how much these lumber prices are going up to. I mean, if they were up an average of, $20,000-$25,000 to construct a home, it's going to be even more. It's going to be $30,000, $40,000 if this continues. $52.99 a sheet in 3/4 CDX. Get this, 3/4 CDX was selling for $58.60. There's like less than $6 spread between 3/4 inch and half-inch CDX. Like, you could practically sheet your entire house with 3/4 CDX and not really pay that much of a difference. I mean, typically, like, there would be probably at least a good $15 spread between half-inch and 3/4 CDX, and now there's less than $6. That's how big the demand for half-inch CDX is right now. I don't know how long this is going to continue. I mean, I've said it before. I would watch the interest rates. I would watch the 10-year Treasury. If that continues to tick up as far as the yield goes, then the pressure on the building supplies, it's gonna hit eventually. But as far as I can tell right now, there looks like there is no slowing down. That this is going to continue at least into the summer, probably towards the end of summer, before we see any kind of price relief on this. And I think probably, like, if you're a builder or looking to build or have a project in mind for the upcoming, weeks and months, I would secure your items quickly. Like, I wouldn't count on there being the material at the job or at the supplier when you think it is. Like, there was a time when you could just walk into just about any lumber yard and pick out particular items and never question whether or not they were going to have it. And now you're probably, even on the most simplest items, some of the trim, just the easy like 1x4 trims, 1x6 trims, 5/4 trims, these things are coming up in short supply. They're hard to get. I mean, a lot of lumber yards are stocking up, and they may have a big supply of them, but getting new stock in is probably going to become very difficult on a lot of stuff, a lot of the common things. For example, there's something out there called 2 1/4 colonial casing. The stuff that we stock is generally a hemlock. Hemlock 2 1/4 colonial casing. I have probably sold 100,000 feet of this and never once ever questioned whether or not I would be able to get more of it. Ever. It was always plenty of supply. I called 2 different suppliers, have none. Out of stock. Don't know when they're going to get more. They can get more. They can go to one of their competitors who has it, but the price I'm going to pay, it's up there. I don't know what to say about, what is going to come here in the future. I mean, I really like to throw out my guess, but I just see that people are going to be in a struggle to build this year. I think everybody's going to be scrambling for materials to try and secure those materials. I think once you do secure them, it's going to be very expensive. And I just feel that if the interest rates churn and start dragging that mortgage market down, then yeah, we're going to see a churn in the materials as well. Now, a lot of people are saying this is price gouging, or that it's the mills or something like that. If you go back and you follow my channel from about 3 years ago, where we were talking about mill closures, we were talking about, trade wars and tariffs and bugs and wildfires, there has been a lot that's taken place inside of the lumber industry over the last 3 years. And to pinpoint it down in one particular spot and say that's the reason, it's not. I mean, it's really not. A lot of people, because I'm from a logging community, like everybody, there's 2 things that we do here for money. We fish and we log. And a lot of the loggers, are saying that they're not getting a lot of money for their trees. And, I think about that. And one of the things I try to remind people is, you remember how many of these ships, because I live right along the Columbia River too. I said, remember how many of these ships were loaded with logs, hauling them over to Asia? Those trees during the trade war were cut and sitting on the ground, and they needed to get cut. They needed to get milled. It took a while to get through that glut. And even now, with all the loggers wanting to work, they're not exporting those trees in the same sense that they were. Down south, there is a glut of trees, a glut of tree farmers trying to sell their trees off to the mills. There was a great Wall Street article that came out about that. There was bug infestation, wildfires. There is a million things that you can talk about as far as why the lumber prices are up as high as they are. But ultimately, if somebody is not willing to pay the interest payment on building a new home, then the prices will come down. It's a supply and demand issue right now. It's not inflation, not from what I can see, but more of a lack of supply. The mills are pumping it out, but there is not as much trade as taken place as there once was. See, a lot of people just say, all these mills can just fire up and just go for it. Well, if you remember right, there was a time when there was a lot of mills up in Canada who were pumping a lot of lumber into the United States, and that shifted. Once that trade shifts, it's very difficult to bring it back up online again. So, this is the situation we're in. All right, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.